One question that I get a lot from people is, where is the best place for me to be? Astrocartography is a tool that a lot of people have used to make these kind of decisions, but I want to show you how to take it a step further using human design and gene keys. So this is what I would call part of the Trifecta system, because it blends these three tools in a way that I've developed myself. So as far as I know, no one else is doing this. I'm going to show you how. And I'm also running a workshop on this Tuesday and Wednesday, where I'll actually be laying this out in full and really walking through this in detail. And I'm going to tell you a personal story along the way. And if it is of interest, please, by all means, sign up for the workshop. If you missed the workshop, I'm going to update the link so you can get a replay version later so you can watch it on demand. So no matter what, you'll be able to access this, because I think that this is really, really cool because it blends the precision of human design with the possibilities of the gene keys and the specialness and location geography-based approach of astrocartography. So be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, because we're going to dive in with this really cool technique. Okay, so let's dive in. I'm going to show you the basics of astrocartography. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use human design and gene keys. And then I'm going to show you how to use the Great Cycle to find a time coordinate for it. So you can find a location coordinate for things and a time coordinate. And this is very helpful. I use it for locating one's spiritual home or place that they're meant to be, and also what they need to know before they go there. Because I've tried living at my spiritual home, quote unquote, before. When I was 19, I moved to the same part of the world that I live now, but I had a very different experience because I hadn't resolved another area of my chart. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here, and I'm going to show you how you can use human design to get really high grade resolution from this, and even then you can do any sort of past life regression work or ancestry work much easier, because now you have the insights and the details to help guide your investigation into maybe some patterns that you want to change. So if you scroll down the screen to AstroClick Travel and click AstroClick Travel, you'll get a page like this. Now, there's a lot going on here, and this video isn't on how to do astrocartography. That's another video. But I'll basically just say this, that what you have on this screen is you have all of the planets that are in your chart at your time of birth. And this is where, if you were born in this location, you relocated to this location, where that planet would be on your chart. So for instance, my son at birth was in like the end of the second house, beginning of the third house. However, if I wasn't born here, but I was born over here, that sun would actually rotate and be perfectly in alignment with the IC on my chart. And so there's 4 cardinal directions in everyone's chart, and that's based on the house system. So that's the ascendant, which is the lessons you're here to learn this life, the descendant, the people and quality of relationships you're going to have, the IC, which is like your home and your inner world, the qualities of that, and then the MC, which is like your public view and your career. So naturally, depending on what you're looking for someone with relationships or a home, or you're looking for a good place to, basically blossom and launch a career, then these are questions, or to learn and to develop. The funny thing is I actually moved here. I'll show you exactly where I moved when I was 18 years old, and it didn't work out the way I thought it was. I was always attracted to Vancouver, and so I moved to Vancouver. This is very close, by the way. This is within, 100 kilometers of the line, so it's still got quite a strong influence. But Vancouver didn't work out so well. And what I learned was that there's other elements of the chart that I had to deal with first. And funny enough, my father, who I've got a complex sort of unpacking of inherited, stuff, like everybody does from their parents. But anyway, funny enough, my father was born in Hyderabad, India, and lo and behold, Saturn and Pluto cross extremely close. Saturn pretty much runs right through where my dad was born. So you can't make this up. This is like, that could be a coincidence. The place I've always wanted to live, and I currently live now, feels like my spiritual home. And the place my dad's from is where my Saturn line runs, DC, so other people. So the way that I interpret this was by cleaning up and understanding, okay, I wanted to get, understanding what's going on here. So you could say I've got Saturn on the DC, but what is Saturn doing in my chart? Well, if I go over here, and I'm just doing this in tropical, by the way, you can do this in true sidereal, and I would highly recommend it. And in the workshop, I'll show you how to do both, and I'll show you what both really speak to. But for now, I just kind of want to show you Saturn. So here, Saturn is gate 1, which is creativity. So you can say Saturn is inhibiting or restricting my creativity and my ability to find creativity in relationships with other people, in collaborations. So that was being essentially stifled in a way. So gate 1. And the next thing that I can do is I can take a look at when did gate 1 in recent history cross in the Great Dial. And that's another discussion, but this is basically the locks and keys system from Human Design. You can see right here, and gate 1 corresponds with the example. Now the example is the creative force that leads the way. So in a way, this here was inhibited, you could say, because of Saturn's influence. And it relates with the temporal period of 33 BC to 378 AD, specifically in the second line of that. So that would be, roughly between 265 AD to about 312. So that was the last time 1 was sort of acted in the collective. Gate 1 was acted in the collective. And it was in the example. So it's sort of when that key hit that lock, which has to deal with the example. And effectively, that was sort of something from that time period in the location I just showed you in Hyderabad, India, was where sort of the karma, you could say, was. So then I can go and I can contemplate that, meditate upon that, do some clearing work, and release that. But I have details now of where this is in time and where this energy comes from in the world. So after releasing that energy, one thing led to the next. I was actually in Bali, and I saw this vision of Vancouver Island, Canada. I'm like, what? I'm living in Bali, and I'm moving to South Africa. I'm light years away from there. Sure enough, we went back. My partner and I went back to South Africa, and we were there, and we saw these pictures of Vancouver Island, and just for fun, we left a post on a message board, and somebody replied and said, I've got this place. And they showed me the place, and it was like straight out of a dream. And it was like, yes, we are taking that place. And it was sort of my invitation to come back because of the work that was cleared. So you see, this IC line held a potential for a spiritual home type of placement because the sun is 70% of our vitality and the IC represents our home or inner world. So this is a very good placement for a spiritual home type of thing. So the sun IC. Now, funny enough, where I currently live, I'm even closer to this line than I was before. Believe it or not, like that's the location of the place. I'm not going to show you exactly where I live, but it's very, very close to that. It's just west of there, actually. So I thought it was very, very uncanny and not coincidental, but it was a real layer of this whole simulation, you could call it, that we're in, proving itself again. Now, if I wanted to dig and say, okay, well, what's the quality of this here, of this sun in the IC? So I know sun IC is spiritual home, okay? Got that figured out from astrology. And I come over to here, and then again, this is the tropical human design. I do this with true sidereal in the workshop, but for now, we're just going to stick with tropical. And I look at gate 61, line 1. Funny enough, in all the times in history, where does that correspond with? That's our time right now. And it's the last 61 years. So it's from 65 years. So 1961 to 2026. So it's like here and now. When I read that, it sent shivers up and down my spine. It's like you are meant to be there now. was basically the interpretation of the inner message that I got for it. For this time in history, there's a very powerful activation for you. So basically what this is, I'm able to combine traditional astrocartography with these additional layers of human design, gene keys, and the Great Cycle, which is a part of the human design system. And in doing so, it allows me to get much more higher grade resolution. So gate 61 too has to do with inner truth, occult knowledge. So I know this is a place where I'm going to go and be to study and to teach with, spiritual traditions and spiritual wisdom. So I'm going to be working with that. Naturally, that's exactly what has been coming up here. It's been more about my YouTube channel growing. It's been more about the thoughts and the downloads that I've gotten since I landed here a month ago, just knowing that this is the place where I'm going to be working with that land energy. So I'm not saying everybody has to go to their sun IC location to find their spiritual home. No, definitely. And by the way, sometimes if you go there and you have unresolved karmic patterns, it won't turn out the way that you hope it would turn out. But what I am saying is that there's a potential at the sun IC line. And you don't even need to go there per se, because you can find out where that potential is and use your own inner barometer and sense if there's locations on that line, and then double check the time in history when that location was activated and see what that says. For me, it sounds pretty woo, but suffice to say, before this lifetime, I've had strong memories of sort of the 1960s and 70s and music festivals along this line in this type part of the world. And so even before I moved out here, I've always seen images in my mind's eye of Northern California and Vancouver Island. They've always been there like impressions, but mostly of the 60s and 70s. And so it's almost like a feeling of that being a spiritual home, because maybe it was in a different lifetime. Maybe there's some sort of a tie there to something that is very nourishing and is very revitalizing. It's like the remembrance. There's a brightness with the sun. So I'm not going to go into detail on all of the different planets, but I just wanted to cover the big two that I personally like to use. If I was a complete beginner, which two are most important? Well, the sun is where 70% of your vitality goes, and Saturn is the gatekeeper and the lesson master, the taskmaster of the things that you've come to learn this life. It's not a bad thing, but it creates a bit of maturity in dealing with your Saturn line. So again, the steps for this that I employ are: you find your sun line or your Saturn line in astrocartography, you look at the gates and the lines that they are in human design, you interpret those, and then you run it through the Great Cycle. Now, the added thing I'd recommend if you're into true sidereal is look at your tropical and then look at your true sidereal. This, by the way, doesn't matter. This doesn't change. Your astrocartography doesn't change between true sidereal and tropical unless you're changing your house system. So you're going from Placidus to Coke, or from Coke to equal houses or something like that. That would be the only thing that could potentially change it. But is the zodiacs, what zodiac you're using does not actually change this. So this is super cool. It does change the gates, so your interpretation changes. And again, I'll be talking about that in my upcoming workshop on Tuesday. And if you miss the workshop and want to get a replay, you can just use the link below. I will update it eventually, or send me a message as well. You can find me. I'm on the True Sidereal Human Design group, which I'd recommend joining if you're into True Sidereal Human Design. It's run by a good friend of mine, Destiny Ray. There's a link to that in the description below. And if you're interested in trying Trifecta for free, I've got a free Reveal and Heal Your Collective Wound. It's a 3-day program that gives you a free reading, and it also kind of introduces you to the system that I'm working with, that I've kind of synthesized from astrology, human design, gene keys, called Trifecta, that allows you to basically make attunements to your higher bodies so that you can essentially do things easier and faster. You don't have to spend years and years and years studying astrology and human design. You can get the best parts of it that are most specific to people that are on a path. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to ask any questions below and love to hear your feedback. Take care.